Caroline Girvan has over 640 to be exact, workouts on her YouTube channel and 22 different series. And as someone who has completed all of them over the last several years of my life, I thought it could be helpful to rank them all from least difficult to most difficult to hopefully simplify your journey just a little bit, because when you go and you look at her YouTube channel, it can be very difficult to sort of navigate and decide which one is right for you. If you're ready, let's go. What's up, mamas? Alexandria here, a 35-year-old toddler mom, as well as a licensed therapist for over 10 years and a self-professed gym rat, honestly thanks to Caroline Girvan. And over the last several years, I feel like I have sort of cracked the code on weight loss and healthy living, and part of that is through my personal experience, but also my therapy background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the series into two tiers. So the first tier, the first little pyramid, is going to be the shorter series. So that's going to be your 1 weekers and your 2 weekers. And then the second pyramid will be all of your 6 and 10 week programs. So that's going to be your fuels and your fuel, your iron, and your epics. So that's how we'll break down the video. I've got notes. You know I've got notes. Okay, so tier 1, there are 15 workouts that are mostly a week, but are either a week, 2, or 3 weeks. So the first one, and the one I have listed as easiest, now I guess I should say from the jump here, is these workouts were seemingly designed for someone who is at a moderate to advanced level training age, but that doesn't mean that you can't do them. I did them early on in my training. I did have a little bit of training experience, but not a ton. So number 1 is strong and lean. This series is one of her earlier series on the channel, and it is 1 week long. And I feel like this one is easiest for me. These are 45-minute workouts, but to me, these feel easier because they're just a more moderate pace of workout. As you probably know, if you've done some of the epics, there can be like more of a high intensity pace. But in the strong and lean series, it's much more moderately paced. The workouts are going to be 45 minutes long in duration, but it's primarily body weight. And so in this way, I just feel like this could be a good one for beginners. There are a couple of like pretty low intensity workouts in this one as well. So if you're somebody who's kind of intimidated by high intensity, this one is a great place to start. And so this one is number 1. For number 2, I have the 1 hour series actually. And I know that probably sounds weird to some of you. You're thinking 1 hour with Caroline. Yes, 1 hour with Caroline can be a long time. But as I said in number 1, I feel like this is a much more moderately paced program because it's an entire hour long. She doesn't make it quite as intense or quite as extreme. And so in that way, I feel like this is actually one of the easier series to, kind of start on, even though it's 1 hour. If you've got the 1 hour to commit, this can be nice because it's a much more leisurely pace. And so it gets at number 2. And again, if you want full details on each of these workouts, length of time, all that sort of stuff, I'll link that video in a card for you. I've already done that video. I won't spend a bunch of time on that today because that's a longer one. I'll link that video for you in a card so you can go check that one out when you're finished. It's super helpful, I promise. Third one is no repeat week. Now, technically it's not a week, it's 10 workouts. So technically it could be a week, but it could be 10 days. It kind of depends on what you want to do. It's mix and match. There are 10-minute workouts all the way up to 30-minute workouts in the no repeat series. But I do feel like the level of no repeat and also them being shorter workouts can make this one a little bit more friendly for those who aren't really sure where to start or like easier. I say easier in quotes because, as I've said, I don't think any of these are necessarily easy, but I do think there are easier ones than others. So in this way, I do find the no repeat week to be easier, A, because you're not repeating things, so you can sort of change up the muscle group that you're working, but B, because they're shorter time frames, you can sort of mix and match a little bit with this particular week of exercises. And so in that way, I just think it makes it a little more simple. Unilateral week is what I have for number 4 on the pyramid. I don't know what it's going to look like on the screen, but on the pyramid, whatever. And I feel like the unilateral is nice for a, like, I don't want to say easier because that just feels like the wrong word here, but it feels a little easier to me because you do get a break in between each side, right? So you're focusing hard on one side of your body and then you're switching. So in that way, like if you're doing, a press on this side, this arm is taking a break, right? And so you get longer rests in between each side. So in that way, I do feel like it makes it a bit easier from a from a degree of difficulty standpoint when you're thinking about rating it. Again, if you would disagree with me, please feel free to let me know in a comment. I'm more than happy to be disagreed with as long as you're doing it nicely. But these are going to be 45-minute workouts as well. But with this type of, style of training with the unilateral, I just feel like because you get a little more of a break, you don't get as high of a heart rate, and that can, in some ways, make it easier. You can certainly dial it up if you wanted to, or dial it back if you needed to, but it gives you the opportunity to have longer rest breaks for the side that you're not using at the time. And so in that way, it feels like unilateral is a little bit easier. Number 5 is tempo week. Now, I love tempo week. Tempo week is a lot of fun, and it took me a while to appreciate tempo week because, I don't know, it's just one of those like nuanced things. But with tempo week, the workouts are going to vary in exactly what it sounds like, tempo. So you might be moving at a slower pace or a faster pace, depending on the exercise and the work period. And that has the potential to make it more difficult and more interesting. But for me, it kind of falls in the middle of the pack. I guess that's kind of where we are, right? We're at number 6. We're headed into number 6. So we're like headed towards sort of the middle of the pack in terms of degrees of difficulty. And I feel like tempo week, if you are following her pace, is probably intended to be pretty challenging. But it can be a lot of fun to mix and match with the tempos. And again, this is a week-long series, so it just feels a little more manageable to me comparatively to some of the others. And so that's why I rated it at number 5. Now we're getting into the full-blown mid-tier workouts. So these are what I would call like the more moderate difficulty, these 5. And then the last 5 will be like what I see kind of as like the most difficult in degree of difficulty. And so number 6 is pyramid training. So pyramid training is kind of funny. If you've never done pyramid training before, you're working your way up the ladder and then working your way back down. And so pyramid can feel deceiving because you get yourself, you're like, oh, that was only 20 seconds. Like, okay, no big deal. I got this. And then you hit to 40. That was not so bad. And then you hit 60 at the top of the pyramid. You're like, oh, this is kind of hard. And then you're like, oh, we're doing 40 again. Oh, we're doing 20 again. And that last 20 seconds is a whole heck of a lot harder than that first 20 seconds was. Pyramid training can be kind of sneaky from a training standpoint. So I think it does make it a little bit more difficult. Again, you can also dial each of these up and down to degree of difficulty based on your desired effect here. But generally speaking, I think that this one ranks at number 6 just because of that. It has a moderate degree of difficulty, but it doesn't feel like impossible. Granted, none of these are impossible, but you get what I'm saying. Or at least hopefully you do. For number 7, I put pure endure. I always feel weird saying that. It always sounds weird when I say it out loud. It doesn't matter. But pure endure is actually designed not as like a program specifically, but as 5 days of different challenges. And I do feel like these workouts in pure endure, it doesn't matter. I feel like they're challenging. They certainly are. I mean, you've got 500 rep, 1,000 rep, and different ones are different degrees of difficulty based on like the challenge itself. But I don't know. It just feels like somewhere in the middle of the pack to me. Again, you can feel free to disagree with me if you like. I think this one might be one where people be like, no, girl, you cray. And that's okay too. You can tell me I'm crazy. As long as you do it nicely. Is there a nice way to tell someone you think they're crazy? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, my point is though, I don't feel like they are like impossible challenges, but I do feel like if you're especially trying to shake things up, these are a little more intense than some of your earlier ones, but it doesn't feel as difficult to me as some of the later ones that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. Number 8, this is where I put Epic Beginner. Epic Beginner kind of goes in spot number 8 to me because I do feel like it falls under that like moderately difficult. This is the program she designed not for beginners, but to help you to know if you're ready to start on the Epic programs. And so if you're falling sort of in this camp, I think you'd probably, find this to be like a moderate level. And if you're finding it moderate level, you're probably ready. Or if you're finding it easy, you're probably ready to go ahead and jump into the epics. But if you're finding this one extremely difficult, Caroline sort of suggests doing this one until you complete, or at least she used to. I don't know if that necessarily is her stance anymore now that she has, full-blown beginner on the app. She might recommend you start there, obviously. And of course, that is paid rather than free. So I did a whole video on the app versus the YouTube program, so that'll be linked in a card. Also, I feel like I've gotten like a PhD in Caroline Girvan. The way I've studied her apps and her programs, like I feel like I'm like, is there a degree for Caroline Girvan? Because if there is, I feel like I need like a certificate. With the amount of time and energy I've spent studying this woman's programming. But anyway, my point being is that it does feel like it has a moderate degree of difficulty, and it is designed to help you know if you're ready to move on to the next stage and to complete the epics. So that's where I put it at number 8. Number 9 is the 24 days of Christmas, and this is 24 workouts, so around 3 weeks, not quite 4 weeks, right? Math, I'm bad at it. But the 24 weeks of Christmas, the reason that it falls like higher is because I do feel like there are some really challenging workouts in the 24 days of Christmas, even though this one kind of jumps around in terms of time. They're anywhere between like 20 and 40 minutes usually. And so some of them are more challenging than others. And some of my very favorite like short programs come from the Advent calendar. I've done a couple of them, and I have a 30-minute video about my favorite 30-minute workouts. And at least one of them comes from the Advent calendar because it's just super terrific and hits all the muscle groups. You're in, you're out, you're on with your life. And in that way, I do feel like there are some more challenging workouts, but there are also ones that are dialed a little bit back and a little bit easier. So that's how it kind of ended up at number 9, right? Number 9? Yes, number 9. Number 10 is where I decided to put Caroline Calisthenics. All right, so stay with me because I feel like, so when I think about Strong and Lean and Caroline Calisthenics, they're both primarily workouts that you do with body weight rather than with weights. But somehow Caroline Calisthenics feels more challenging, and I think it's because of like the almost aerobatic style. I talked about this in my other video, but like I just feel like you need more mobility to be able to do them. And in that way, I do feel like the Caroline Calisthenics can be pretty challenging, and that's why it's made it so close to the bottom in spite of the fact that it has body weight only. I do think that she intentionally makes the moves more challenging because she knows you are using body weight only. And so you don't have any weights to add that degree of difficulty. You just sort of have to be at as difficult as it can be. Does that make sense? And so don't sleep on a Caroline Calisthenics workout. Don't just assume because it's body weight that means it's going to be easy, because it certainly isn't. And honestly, I do feel like it's one of the tougher ones, but some of that is also probably me and the fact that like my core strength is not what it was from when I was younger, obviously because I've had a child, and I've had to rebuild my core from that. And so because I have a weaker core, and that's something I continue to work on and work towards, something like a Caroline Calisthenics where I feel like I'm a Cirque du Soleil performer may feel a bit more challenging to you if you're a yogi or you have already great like core muscles. Then this one might not feel as difficult for you, and you may find this in the earlier like part of the bracket. So you'll have to let me know. All right, now we are moving into the last 5 that I feel like are the most difficult of the shorter week series. So at number 11, I put the circuit series, and this one is just a really fun style. If you've never done circuit training before, it's going to be basically a grouping of different exercises that are related, maybe not related, it kind of depends on the day of the week, and they are done back with a small break in between, and then you start over from the beginning. And so in that way, I do think it can make these more interesting or make the time go a bit faster because you've got the timer set, but you're kind of changing up the exercises. So if you get bored with like a straight set format, because I've heard people say that that's boring, to each their own. I don't find it boring. I zone out anyway. But I like a circuit style training. I think it can be fun, but because it moves at what feels like to me a bit of a faster pace, I oftentimes find that my heart rate is a little higher. And so when you're trying to navigate and balance higher heart rate plus weights, that to me is more of a challenge than when your heart rate is staying at a lower level. And that's honestly why a lot of these have made it to the higher ones, is because I feel like these are much more difficult to moderate your heart rate than some of the ones that I've mentioned earlier along in the pyramid. That brings us to number 12, which is Kick A Kettlebells. I'm not going to say it, but Kick A Kettlebells, which is exactly what it sounds like. She's going to kick your butt with a kettlebell. And again, this is one of those that is a little bit different from the others because it's the only true kettlebell workout on the app. I'm losing it. It's the only true kettlebell workout on her channel. And my sister-in-law absolutely loves this program. I think it's probably one of her favorites. She really likes kettlebells. I don't love kettlebells. They're okay. But because of your use of kettlebell, I do feel like this one is, again, one of those ones where if you're especially playing with like heavier weights and you're doing kettlebell swings and things like that, which there are a fair amount of those in this program, you're going to have a harder time navigating between heart rate and higher like dumbbells. So in sort of that like balancing act approach, that makes this feel much more difficult than some of the earlier programs. Number 13, I decided that Hit It Hard was an appropriate spot for this one. Again, you may disagree with me on this. You may think this one is like next to impossible. You guys really will have to let me know. I'm really curious to get all of your opinions on these workouts, and if you think I'm like completely off the mark, or if you feel like this is if this was accurate to you. And to me, Hit It Hard falls sort of in the higher level because, as it says, HIIT, high intensity interval training. So it's designed to be as fast as possible, as intense as possible for these 20-minute increments. And so I just feel like it is a challenging workout. I don't know, this was kind of a hard one for me to place because I wasn't quite sure it really fit completely at the end as like the most difficult, but it's certainly not the least difficult either. So this is just sort of where it landed, to be honest. All right, we've got 2 more in this little pyramid. So for number 14, I put the complexes series. I freaking love a good complex. I just do. But that leg day for complexes is extremely challenging. Like, I have vivid memories of doing complex week. That leg day, like, I have vivid memories of that leg day. It was memorable. It meant something to me because it was really hard. And so that's part of the reason why it ended up the way that it did. But I just think because when you're doing a complex, you are running under like a longer window of time, so your endurance is really being pushed, like your muscular endurance is really being pushed as well. Now granted, you can and maybe you should take breaks. I'm kind of crazy, so I don't like to take breaks if I can help it. Like, my goal is to do as many reps as possible. I think that's why the confusion with AMRAP and complex for me is because I'm insane and I'm trying to make a complex into an AMRAP, and I shouldn't. But you can take breaks in a complex, but the idea is that the timer is running for, a minute and a half to usually about 3 minutes for Caroline. I believe in the complex it's 3 minutes if I'm remembering right. But in that 3 minutes, you're bouncing between a couple of different exercises. But I try to take minimal breaks, and because of that, it definitely makes it more difficult. But if you needed to take more breaks, you could dial it back. And finally, what did I pick for the last one? You say, well, that leaves us with Beast Mode. And Beast Mode is actually a 2-week series. And I really do feel like you feel like a beast when you complete Beast Mode. And I distinctly remember the first time I did Beast Mode, I actually stopped. Like, I was going to do Beast Mode, and day 1 of Beast Mode had burpees. And I was like, no thank you. And I put it away, and I picked it back up at a different date because of that. There are burpees day 1 on Beast Mode. It is a great training program. Absolutely. But it definitely is a higher degree of difficulty training program than some of the other ones. And so for that reason, it ended up at the very bottom and the hardest, in my opinion, of all of the shorter series. And my friends, if you're loving this, I would absolutely love if you would hit the thumbs up button. If this has been helpful to you at all, lets YouTube know that this is a helpful video so I can share it with like-minded folks like yourself. And of course, if you love to be here, I would absolutely love if you would come and subscribe to the YouTube channel and let me be your non-doji gym rat mom friend who helps you to reach your goals and tries training programs so you don't have to. So let's move on to the second pyramid that we're going to do, which is going to cover all of our longer series. So in this one, we're going to cover our 6-week series as well as our 10-week, or the 30 workouts and 50 workout programs. So we've got a mixed bag here. So, all right. I'm kind of nervous about this because I have a feeling some of y'all are going to be mad at me, but here it is. So in my opinion, the easiest, again, none of these are easy, but the easiest to me is iron. Okay. Before you start booing me, Girvanators come hard for iron. Like, they love it, and I love that they love it. Like, in the Caroline Facebook group, people are all about it, and I love that. The reason I'm putting iron at the top is not because it is an easy workout, but because to me and in my mind, it's the most adaptable. It's the most beginner friendly because you have the ability to kind of control the degree of difficulty based on the weights that you choose. And you don't really have quite as much control in the epics because of that heart rate element that's going to be included in many of the workouts. And so in that way, I do feel like iron is easier, and it wasn't available when I started working out with Caroline. That just wasn't a serious program option for me. But I think as a beginner or as a new to Caroline person, that's the program I would have chosen for me when I was starting out. That would have been what I would have chosen to start with. And in that way, that's why it goes at the top of the pyramid as the easiest. I'm not saying it's easy. You certainly can bust your butt with iron. If you go heavy enough, you will feel it. That is absolutely for stinking sure. There is no doubt about it. It's a great workout, but there's no cardio component in it. And because of that, to me, feels more adaptable. So please don't come for me. You can disagree with me, please, all day, every day. Feel free to disagree with me. But don't come for me telling me I said that it was easy, because I didn't say it was easy. I promise. I'm not saying it's easy. Breathe, Karen, breathe. Okay, now 2 and 3, I had a hard time with 2 and 3 because I kind of feel like, to me, they're about the same. So I picked one and then the other, but to me, they're kind of they feel about the same degree of difficulty to me. So what I picked for number 2 was Epic 3, which is the one I'm currently working through for a second time. It's been a while since I did this one. And part of the reason that I picked Epic 3 is because I do feel like there is a challenge. Now with each of the epics, there's going to be a HIIT component, and then you're going to have each like alternating days of the week. In Epic 3, we're alternating upper body and lower body. So one week it's 2 days lower, the following week it's going to be 2 days upper. And so in that way, it can be a little bit easier, I guess, because you've got like a primary focus for 1 week and then a primary focus for the alternating week, which is going to be different than the week prior. But again, it's in no way easy, and there are definitely some doozies. Shout out to workout number 7, Epic 3 Day 7. There's definitely some doozies in Epic 3, certainly. I'm not questioning that. But I do feel like it is maybe a little bit easier. It doesn't have like that sort of like standout component in the way that some of the other ones do. It just feels easier compared to what I'm comparing it to, okay? And then for number 3, this is where I put Epic Heat. Again, I kind of feel like from degree of difficulty standpoint, they kind of feel around the same to me. And I did both of them at the same time, and now I've also been working on completing them at like a higher training age. And they feel about the same degree of difficulty to me. The difference between Epic 3 and Epic Heat is that Epic Heat is 30 minutes. And I kind of feel like if Caroline's going to give you a shorter workout, she's going to make you work harder for that shorter window of time. Like her expectation is, oh, we've only got 30 minutes, so like let's make it work. Let's make it worth our time. That's what it feels like to me. And so Epic Heat, I think, is a great sort of balance of strength and cardio, but again, trying to navigate and balance lifting weights while also maintaining a higher heart rate can be a bit more challenging. And again, if you haven't heard me say this before, this is the first series I ever did with Caroline, like that I completed all the way through. Before I could like finish a workout, like I would have to take breaks and stuff like that. But this was the first series I ever completed like all the way through and wasn't just like bouncing around to a couple of her different workouts. And so this one is also near and dear to my heart, so I am a little biased in that regard. But I do really love Epic Heat, and I think it's a great one if you're kind of new to the programming, because with 30 minutes, she dials it up, but you could dial it back and go for like smaller or shorter increments of time. So in that way, if you've only got 30 minutes, if you wanted to dial it up in the same way that Caroline does, you could, but you could also dial it back a bit, and you've only worked out for 30 minutes. And I don't say that to put down for 30-minute workouts. That's actually my preferred amount of time to work out, is about 30 minutes. That's just a personal preference thing, and also just what works logistically in the season of life that I'm in. But 30 minutes to me feels like kind of the sweet spot. And so you have the ability to dial it back because you're working for a shorter period of time than a 45-minute or an hour long. Hopefully that makes sense. I moved is because my camera decided I'd been talking for too long. So it was like, shut up, girl, shut up. And I was like, no, I need more storage. I'm almost done. Okay. All right. So let's go back to Epic 2 because I don't know where I was. So Epic 2 is going to be the longest of all of the Epic series. There's a 1 hour workout that's a carryover from 1 Hour Friday, and that carries over into Epic 2 as well. And these are the longest of the Epic workouts. Epic Heat is the shortest of all of the Epic series, like not like duration wise, but like length of workout. So you're going to end up with more like 45 to 50 minute, and then like those hour workouts. It just sort of works out that way from a math standpoint. So something to keep in mind, you're going to need more time when you're completing an Epic 2 than you are if you're completing Epic Heat or even one of the other Epics. But I also feel like Epic 2 is just a little more challenging from a mobility standpoint than maybe an Epic Heat or an Epic 3. Yes. Because my brain is like, what are you talking about? Because I feel like she dialed back some of the mobility difficulty that she put in the earlier Epic programs to make things a bit more user-friendly. And so in that way, I think Epic 2 falls in one of the more difficult of the Epics, even though it's an earlier Epic. It still may not be the Epic you want to choose because it's a little more difficult from a mobility standpoint. She also switched later in the Epics, she switches HIIT to Sunday, which I personally prefer. But in Epic 2, that's where you're going to find your 1 hour day. Your 1 hour day is going to be on Sunday, and your HIIT's actually going to be on a Monday. So if you're doing them in the way that they are written, then you're going to do a 1 hour, and then the following day is going to be a HIIT day. So it's pretty intense, and so that's how it made it where it did. And then I opted as number 5 to put Epic Endgame here. Epic Endgame felt appropriate here because I just feel like there's something magically challenging about that 100 rep finisher in Epic Endgame. This was the last of the epics to go up on YouTube. I guess she really hasn't created epic since then. I'd love to see her bring this format back on the app. But anyway, Caroline, if you're watching, you're probably not. But if you're watching, can you bring back the epic format? I miss it. Okay, anyway. She's clearly not watching this video. I'd love if she did. But anyway, my point, stay on track, Alexandra. So my point being is, though, I think Epic Endgame fits well here. It is definitely a challenging workout, a challenging style of workout. And these are going to be your 100 rep finishers. The 100 rep finisher on the series finale, that like the end of the 10 weeks, is 100 burpees. So keep that in mind. So it is difficult. Again, all of these you can dial up and back certainly, but this one just felt right to go here in this spot. All right, we've got two more. What do you think's going next? If you guessed fuel, then you would be correct. I put fuel here. So fuel, I tease, and I think I made this joke in my other videos too. I'm really sorry, but I always tease that Caroline created names for burpees so that she didn't have to call them burpees, because fuel is filled with burpee-like movements. Whether she calls them a burpee or not, that's exactly what they are. And so in that way, it's again that balancing the weightlifting aspect with the cardiovascular aspect. And so to me, that one just makes fuel more challenging. Don't get me wrong, I love fuel, and I will take a burpee all day, every day, over a dadgum dead stop lunge. Like all day, every day. Give me all the burpees. If you're gonna make me do dead stop lunges versus burpees, all day with the dead stop lunges. Which one is worse? Dead stop lunges or burpees? You tell me. But I hate dead stop lunges. Like, I hate them with a passion. A burning rain of fire. Okay, anyway. Sorry, I'm wilding today. My point being, fuel is challenging, particularly because of the additional cardiovascular components, but you're still lifting weights. Obviously, you're probably not going to be lifting as heavy during fuel as you would be during iron, because your focus during iron is lifting heavier weights, as opposed to in fuel, that's not the purpose of using fuel. But I don't know. It felt like 6 felt like the right spot to me. You tell me. All right, and that actually leaves us with number 7, which, if you're doing your math, if you're looking at the programs, Epic 1 OG Epic program. I think this one is actually the hardest, and that's why it's kind of funny that it's Epic 1, because, and I guess it kind of makes sense, because she's made adaptations along the way to the epics to make them more sort of like user friendly in a lot of ways. But Epic 1 is definitely, in my opinion, the most challenging from a programming standpoint, because you've got the degree of difficulty of the like mobility in this one, things like pistol squats and stuff like that. And I don't know the number off the top of my head. I'll have to look it up. But Epic 1 day, like, I want to say it's like in the 40s. But I did that one as like my birthday workout. As I've mentioned, I love a good complex. That may very well be the hardest workout I have ever done in my entire life. And that was with being in shape. So yeah, I mean, yeah, like, that very well may be the hardest workout I have ever done, literally. And so I just think Epic 1, because of the way that it's formatted, and also because the mobility stuff is more difficult in Epic 1, it makes it the most difficult of the epics. Again, not impossible. Again, you can do anything you put your mind to, right? I just feel like, from my perspective, Epic 1 is the hardest. So that's all of them. I want to know in the comment section, please tell me what I get right, what I get wrong. Do you agree with my assessment about the degree of difficulties? Or are you like, no, girl, that one is way harder than you said it was, or no, girl, that one is way easier than you said it was? Because this video is going to be most effective if you guys flood the comments with your recommendations and suggestions. And if you loved this, YouTube's going to recommend some other videos for you. I'll link my Caroline Girvan playlist here, because as I've mentioned, I have like a PhD in Caroline Girvan programs now, it feels like. And so there's a whole series. So I'll link that series, that playlist for you as well if you've loved this. And then YouTube's going to recommend something else they think you love, and I'll hope you love it too. For David. Until next time. Bye, friends.